Hello, my name is Jennifer Rodriguez and this is Typography GDSN project number 3. The title of this project is Type the 5 Families, and what we're essentially supposed to do is choose one typeface from each of the 5 families listed. I'm going to list those now. It's going to be old style, transitional, modern, Egyptian / slab serif. I ended up going with slab serif, and also sans serif. Now what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to create 5 individual posters about these families, and I'm going to be sharing those with you guys now. So the first typeface that I ended up choosing is called Godey, and it is an old style typeface. It was created in 1915 by Frederick W. Godey, and it was also highly inspired by Aldous, who actually created a lot of body type that would flow into specific images to kind of create the illusion of objects. And I tried to do that here. You can see with these triangles, but I ended up not liking how they came out because they had like a color in the background, which he would never use. And also it didn't really fit with the full style of this specific typeface, so I ended up just kind of doing a body copy and fitting it into a straight line. So the next typeface I chose was called BAL MT. MT is standing for monotype, and it is going to be under the transitional family. It is known for its hot or letterpress mechanism, and it was created in 1788 by Richard Austin. And I used a lot of strokes on this poster because since it did have the transitional background, and also it was part of the letterpress, I did want to incorporate these strokes because they were kind of boxes around several of the elements here. So I did have the BAL MT inside of one of these strokes, and I did give it like flush right and flush left in the body copy just because I did want it to look really balanced, and I wanted it to kind of also have the borders around it, which also resembles the letterpress again. I did at the bottom part kind of make the background of that last box kind of dark. This was just to help balance the lightness of the whole poster as a whole. It needed more of a contrast between the upper part and the lower part. So because of this, I ended up giving it a very light violet body copy color. It's basically just the same color as the background. The third typeface that I chose is called Bodoni, and it is a modern typeface. That's the family that it's categorized as. And in it, I knew I wanted to fill the center of a letter up with body copy, and I ended up using an O for that in my compositions, but I didn't like how it felt because I feel like the Bodoni and the word modern, both of those pieces of type, were kind of just floating about, and I really wanted them to be incorporated with the body copy as well. So I ended up kind of just manipulating the letter D. I ended up kind of lining it up with both of them because the Bodoni and the modern both have a D in kind of the same spot, so I lined them up. I have the body copy in the counter of the D. It does kind of flow nicely because it is kind of centered. It doesn't really need a flush right or left because since it is like circular, I did want it to kind of fit right, and this is the best way it looked. So I kind of tried out different things until I finally got the best result, which is of course how the final one turned out right here. The word modern, I ended up changing that into a white color, and then on the opposite side of the stem, I did have the rest of the body copy. The fourth typeface that I chose is called American Typewriter. It is a slab serif. I didn't end up finding an Egyptian or serif that I ended up liking as much, so I just stuck with this one. So this one was actually made by Joel Caden and Tony Stan in 1974, and it's actually also used by Adobe, Apple, and Linotype. So this typeface was actually kind of industrial, so it has like a lot to do with like these pipes I was looking at. While I was researching it, I saw a lot of these images that kind of seemed really like almost steampunk, but not quite. However, this did help me proceed into my final design, which I ended up using a lot of the letters of American typewriter itself. I enlarged them and I made them almost like a background. I didn't want them to be too bold as to pull attention away from the type itself or even the body copy. So it did get a little chaotic with them, but I feel like it was kind of a controlled chaotic where you can still make out the body copy since it does have that contrast now. I feel like it kind of pulled it together as a whole. My final typeface that I chose is called Lucida Sans, and it is a sans serif. Now for this one, when I first started off, I wanted to have these boxes. I had one that was black and one was white, kind of seeing which one I would like better if I wanted to make them all a certain color. These boxes did end up taking away a lot from the main typeface, which I didn't really appreciate, so I ended up kind of simplifying them. And I did know that this typeface was created by Bitmap, which is a kind of pixelized. So my final typeface that I chose is called Lucida Sans. Now this one was made in 1984 by Charles Bigelow and Chris Holmes. This typeface was made by bitmaps, which basically just means it's kind of like it was made pixelized just to be very clear and lucid. So I tried to use that with this poster as well. So I ended up having a line going down the middle, and I had all these kind of like geometric shapes, and then I kind of had the sans serif in the bottom left corner. And I did kind of play with the opacity of this one, and I did make the opacity really light, and I kind of shrunk down sans serif. And I kind of put them here and there to kind of help your eyes follow what's important. So in the beginning, you can see that the sans serif is with Lucida, and then the second one is kind of next to the body copy and with the sans. At the very bottom, we have the other piece of body copy and the sans serif in the corner, and that's going to be the last little sans serif that's not as opaque. And I really like that element because it kind of helped you follow it, and it also helped you see that it can be lucid or clear. Even if it's darker, you can still make out everything that it says.